What's going on, everybody? We're back. Episode number 191 of the Club and Sub podcast. 9 more episodes till 200. I think we'll get there before the end of the year, which is pretty cool. Tonight we're talking UFC Vegas 97, Burns versus Brady. It should be an entertaining card. Lags and I were just talking. I think on paper, like the fights look like there will be a lot of fun fights. I don't really like much from a betting perspective, though. I think it's a fairly well-lined card in the aggregate. I have one bet as of now. I don't know if I'll make any others. If you guys, as usual, sorry, I'm talking in slow motion here. If you like the show, drop a like, subscribe. We'd appreciate it. And as always, we're brought to you guys by FightNumbers.com. That's John Kelly's website. It comes with his DFS projections each week, which are some of the best in the industry. Bets from Pepe, Ozzy, Evan, and Chad. It also has the live odds screen, which gives you live odds updates in real time for every book, domestic and overseas, offshore. So, yeah, if you want to check it out, and I promise you guys it's well worth the money. Not financial advice, but I'm comfortable saying it is well worth the money. Yes. For 30% off your first month subscription there, use the promo code CLUB. Those guys appreciate it, and I'm telling you, you'll make the money back fairly easily. But, yeah, we're jumping into it here. UFC Vegas 97. Actually, before we jump into it, real quick, we'll talk about last week's card or 2 weeks ago's card because we haven't talked about it. Good card for me. I went up 5.868 units. I had 3 units on Ryan Loader plus 160. Loader made that fight a bit harder than I thought he would, going for that straight arm lock. But fortunately, the grappling edge was as big as I thought it was going to be, and he won that fight. I had 2.58 units on Tabitha Ricci minus 103. Yeah, at the price I bet it, I think I'm fine with it. Much younger fighter, faster, a bit more athletic. I think her optics were really good there. Oh, what's going on? Bulk in the chat with a new name. What do you know? And then I had a unit and a half on Jared Cannonier plus 225. Kind of a similar type of fight to what we're going to talk about in the main event tonight. Betting these old guys as underdogs in main events has not gone well for me this year. It's probably something I need to start letting go. But, yeah, it was a good night overall. Lex, how'd you do?
It's funny you actually mentioned that, too, because that's something I was going to mention, too. I've been really bad with the changing of the guard spots, and we'll get to a ton of them on this card. But, no, great. I was up 4.55 units. So the only losing bet of the night was Jared Cannonier. I had a unit on him at plus 215. I played Ricci as well, and Ricci by decision at plus 130. So I played Moneyline at minus 130, decision plus 130. And then I played the under 2.5 rounds in that Loader fight. I actually got reverse Sylvia'd real hard on that. It actually closed like about pick'em, that under 2.5. So won a unit and a half there. And then I had a half unit on the Marshall Bazooka fight and split at plus 350. So that was nice.
That was pretty nice. I would have been sick had Bazooka won and I passed on it. So I was
personally, I don't think it should have been a split.
No. I had a bunch of money on Marshall live. I thought, okay, so let's talk about that for a second. And real quick before we jump into this card, dissertation on what the fuck is going on with the judges. Because as you know, Lags, for years I have said, I don't think we have a problem with judging. I think the problem is people betting and bitching about losing close fights. That's gone out the window here. Like the Marshall fight, for instance. Marshall nearly finishes the fight in round 2. He outlands him, gets about a minute of control, and he loses the round on a card because Bazooka lands a couple of huge shots at the end of the round. But nothing drops him. Maybe buzzed him a bit. What else? There was another. Hold on. There was another one last week that was.
Well, Tuivasa was like.
No. There was one last week, man. I'm telling you. Tuivasa one was unreal too. Yeah. Which I think we talked about that. But we have seen these over and over and over and over again for like weeks now, and it just, frankly, it's getting absolutely crazy. Oh, Cavalcanti, 30-27, Josiane Nunes. How?
Okay.
How is that possible? I like literally the fight ended and I was like, that was a pretty clean 30-27. Dogfather asking if his wife can go piano lessons. Absolutely. 30-27. Cavalcanti. I don't know, man. It's getting nuts. And it's like every week we're getting 1 or 2 of these where it's like, it's not just like a small miss. Like I still tend to skew on the side of, okay, a lot of us may see a close fight. Yeah.
Yep.
But like these are like the Tuivasa one, that one, the split decision in the Marshall fight. Like,
one we'll talk about.
Yeah, the Piccinini fight on Tuesday night was horrible last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I did watch that. Yeah.
As well, 30-27 Bogdan fucking Grad. Dude got absolutely dunked on in the third round of that fight, and somehow like. Anyway, what do you think?
What I was going to mention on top of that was, I mean, one we're literally going to get to on this card is Demopoulos Murata. I mean, how you score that fight for Vanessa, I don't know. I don't know how you get there.
Yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of money on that fight. It was not fun. But yeah, I mean, let's jump into it. Ziggy Mathis from Oscar, Nathan Fletcher. I'm going to be real short here. I talked about this last week. I kind of lean Fletcher at the price. I think he's got a decent grappling edge. Not dying to take a position, though, just since I think Ramaska's got the better hardware, has a lot of finishing upside early in this fight. Maybe look to take Fletcher live if he loses the first round. But I think there maybe is some value on Fletcher at the price. It's a low-level fight. I don't really want to lay the juice. What do you think?
Yeah, honestly, pretty similar to you as well. Like, I think Fletcher has if there's anybody that has like a decent edge in the fight, it is in the grappling, and it's Fletcher in that department. But yeah, pretty low level, like you mentioned. For me, honestly, like, and call it just a narrative thing, I hate betting on rebookings. Absolutely hate it. I mean, even one that actually worked in my favor, and it was a long time ago, but was Lipsky and Cachoeira. Like, Lipsky got hospitalized. Fight gets rebooked 2 weeks later. The under 2.5 is about the same price, plus 170-ish, and like.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens.
I don't.
I think if you wanted to bet the Fletcher side, you're actually getting kind of a better opportunity. Because for a lot of the week last week, he was or 2 weeks ago, he was at like minus 170 range. But I don't know. I mean,
the unknown with the injury. Pretty
and Dogfather said it in the chat. Like, Ramaska is horrible on bottom. My concern is just, I mean, you saw it last night with Will Curry on Contenders, man. These fucking Euro grapplers, they just are not trustworthy fighters. Yeah. WMMA fighters, that's what they are, like that's you just can't trust them. Not in the UFC anyway. Although I don't know if Moscow's really UFC level, but we'll see. Yeah. Moving on, fight I see a lot of people with opinions about this week. Andre Petroski, Dylan Budka, current price, Petroski minus 270, Budka plus 230. You taking the shot on Budka here, Legs?
I'm certainly not, and to be honest with you, I don't see what the love is on Dylan Budka. I think he's not great in general. I think he's largely a one-dimensional grappler, and he's not that great of a grappler. And to me, I think if you're taking a shot on Budka, I think you have to rate his grappling and wrestling on par with Petroski, which I don't see how you get there. So I think the line's perfectly fine. And I think on the feet, Petroski is the better striker. Way more finishing upside.
Oh, yeah. I mean, way more better at everything. Dylan Budka
he's a better
fucking
fighter.
Trash, man. Like, I gotta tell you, it is funny. I heard Clint mention this week, and I know he bet Budka, and I'm not like shouting this out to clown him, but
right.
He mentioned that everybody bet Budka against Cesar Almeida, which is true. I did not bet him there. I did not, and I didn't bet. I was leading Almeida just because, like, dude, I watched all of Budka's LFA fights. Like, the dude is not good. Although, ironically, in retrospect, Roman Kopylov absolutely dunked on Almeida grappling. Like, what the hell happened there? It makes, like, no sense.
That was wild. Like, because I also bet Almeida there, too.
Yeah, and I don't think that Kopylov is a much better wrestler than Budka, It doesn't really make any sense. But, yeah, in the context of this fight, I guess the angle on Budka is something like, he exists pretty well. He's somewhat durable. Historically, outside of his last fight, he's had pretty good cardio, and Petroski's got terrible cardio. And like, I agree with all that. I'm inclined to throw out the gas out from his last fight. Short notice. You see these guys adrenaline dumping their debuts all the time, whatever. What I just can't get to is it's like, where is Budka competing on skills here? To your point, Petroski's the better fighter, the better striker. He comes from a better wrestling background. He's the better MMA wrestler. He's the better jiu-jitsu player. It's just cardio. But it's like at that point, like, why not just like wait? And Petroski, I think, is a bit fragile, but dude, Budka can't bust a great man. And like Dylan Budka, this is a guy who, if you guys watch Contenders every week, you just saw Wes Schultz fight a couple of weeks back on Contenders and lose pretty dominantly. I bet Wes Schultz in LFA against Budka, and Schultz took a round off Budka grappling. Dude, like, Wes Schultz would not be taking a round off Andre Petroski grappling, I promise you. So I just feel like you're counting on Budka being able to make Petroski work hard enough to gas out. And then on top of which, you're counting on Petroski gassing out bad enough to not be able to still out-grapple him late in this fight. Because, we've seen Petroski look dead gassed and win round threes, like, pretty frequently, to be honest. The Termon fight, the Hugh Yaozong fight, the Gilmore fight, the fight with, his last fight? Josh Fremd. He was obviously tired, but he just, like, Petroski, you want to, like, have someone who can counter-grapple him and make him work at a high work rate. Like, you go back and watch Petroski, Brian Battle. Like, Brian Battle, it's not just that he was getting up. He was, like, actually, like, landing strikes in the clinch, forcing him to work. And that's kind of my thing, because, like, Budka, he doesn't throw strikes. The dude landed, like, 20 strikes in his first contenders fight. He literally does not throw strikes. He just tries to cage press you and take you down. And so I see the angle on Budka because Petroski's gas is really bad, etc. But I just think he's, like, massively outgunned in the skill department. And if Petroski's gas is going bad enough that it's going to be an issue, I think I'd rather try to jump in live and see if the pace is high enough than try to take a shot at Budka pre. I think Petroski rolls here. I think Petroski's a pretty good fighter who's just a fragile gas bag, so he'll probably never really go anywhere. But he's got skills, And he
gets a lot of shit for the Malkoun fight, and I mean, like, rightfully so, I get it. But, like, I feel like this week, like, people are
he ate a shot in the neck!
I think people are, like, I don't know how to word it really, but, like, people are just downplaying Malkoun in general. Like, Malkoun over Budka would be 4-1.
More than that, I think. Right. Way more than that.
Right. Whereas people are happily taking the shot here, and I don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the logic as to why one would bet Budka. I, like, briefly considered it, but I was just thinking about it in terms of upside. It's like your upside is Budka's, one, going to work at a pace he's never worked at before. And two, be able to survive under Petroski's grappling and firepower long enough for Petroski to take over. And then three, take over and finish Petroski on the back end. Like, Budka's not really a finisher.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a jiu-jitsu edge.
So it seems like a small window.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I could see it happening, but then I'd rather take a shot at the 2-3, or take a shot at him live. Like, if you want to tell me you like...
I was going to say, or depending on what the price is, because, again, he's already a big underdog, but maybe him by split. Like, maybe it's just, like, close rounds.
Yeah. I don't mind this. I don't mind the split look. Or, like, I mean, dude, honestly, you want to take a shot at something big on Budka. Let's see. Right now, I can't believe how much we're talking about a fight that we have no interest in. But Budka, round 3 is plus 1,600. Round 2 is plus 1,000. Budka, round 3, I really don't think he's subbing Petroski even gas. Budka round, I mean, it could happen, but I doubt it. Dude, Budka round 2 by KO TKO. That's garbage. Plus 1,300. Round 3 TKO, though, is plus 2,000, and they'll probably be better on domestics. That's just my bet online. So, I mean, that's how I'd look at it personally, but we don't have to talk about this anymore.
Yep.
Moving on, another fight that I think has stirred feelings amongst many people. We got Jacqueline Amorim taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. Current price, Amorim minus 300, come back in Demopoulos plus 250. I actually thought about pulling the trigger on Amorim at minus 250. Ultimately, decided to pass. I guess my read of the fight and why I was considering it is, like, I don't think Amorim's a great wrestler. I don't think she needs to be to take Demopoulos down, though. I think she's more physical than Demopoulos is, and I think she's a way better grappler than she is. Even in the cardio department, I sort of think, I don't know if Amorim's cardio is overstated, but she's looked fine when she's been able to ride dominant positions, and, I think she can get there here. There are some concerns she could pull guard, but, like, I really can't imagine Vanessa staying safe on top in the way Sam Hughes did. I think like Sam Hughes is a very fundamentally sound fighter, and Vanessa really just tries hard. Like, that's kind of her best skill. But
even Corey McKenna in her last fight.
Yeah. But with that said, my big concern for Amorim in this fight is, Vanessa does make you work really hard on top. Like, she throws a lot of strikes off her back. Now, she'll stay on her back, but to your point about the Murata fight, I had Murata, and I think everybody would agree that she clearly won that fight. But, in this generation, light rabbit punches off your back are scoring as well as like 20 light rabbit punches score as well as 8 hard shots from top position, which is ridiculous, but that's where we are apparently.
And being controlled for 4 minutes of that round.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And so, like, I could see her making Amorim because she made Kanako work a lot. Now I think Amorim's better on top than Kanako is, but she made her work hard. And if she does that to Amorim, maybe she will gas her out. My biggest issue, but I'm not really tempted by Demopoulos because, first of all, she deserved to lose like her last 3 fights. Like, let's be honest. I don't think she was huge value against Murata. Murata closed minus 400 and got 11 minutes of control. Like, the decision was horrific. I honestly don't even think she was huge value against Ducote. She rocked her early, but I think Ducote wins that fight much more often than not. You know, she's outperformed her lines, but I think she is one of the least. I mean, JT just said she has better striking for sure. It's like, are we sure about that? Vanessa's striking metrics are like bottom of the barrel for WMMA. And you know, whatever you want to say on Amorim, I have issues with her gas, what happens when she gets pressured. But this is a young fighter who's training at ATT and who should be leveling up. Vanessa's not that young. She's not good at anything except being durable and existing. So, like, Sean just put this, and I kind of agree, and this is why I passed. Like, hard to picture, Amorim putting in a gutsy performance. I agree, and that's why I'm passing, because I think maybe that could happen. But I don't know, man. I kind of think Amorim's going to beat her pretty easily here. I kind of think she could sub her. I think Demopoulos, having never been subbed before, is kind of wrongly coloring the views of her jiu-jitsu, which I don't think is that good. What do you think?
Yeah, no, again, thinking with you similarly here. I think Amorim should be a decent-sized favorite, and even if she doesn't sub her, I think she can get top time as well. Like, Demopoulos' offer back isn't that threatening.
Well, not with submissions anyway, in my opinion.
No.
But, I mean, she could make her work, and that's really the concern. I do think Amorim's going to get her down, to be honest, like pretty quickly. Yeah. It's just what happens from there. I don't know for sure. Moving on, we got Gabriel Santos making his 3rd fight in the UFC. Dude, poor Gabe Santos. He's 0-2 in the UFC. He fights Lerone Murphy to a split decision and loses in England. He puts out a pretty good performance against David Onama. Just gets knocked out in that fight and kind of got tired because the pace was high. And now they throw him in here, and he's taking on a crazy volume wrestler. Like, I don't know how good Yi's volume wrestling actually is, but, like, dude, this is, like, one of the better prospects in the division. Can you guys give him, like, just give him a layup, Like he's shown he can belong, but like, if he loses this fight, are they going to cut him? Like, he obviously belongs in the UFC. So with all of that said, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, I think he would get a 4th, because in all likelihood, I think this is probably going to be a close fight if he does end up losing, like one of those like back and forth type split type. But I could see him get cut. He loses here, no doubt about it.
Yeah, current price, Santos minus 260. Come back on Yi plus 220. What do you think here, Lex?
I wouldn't lay it with Santos, but I think he is a justified favorite. Like, I just don't rate Yizha's wrestling at all, really. I think Santos is a much better prospect overall in the striking department, in the wrestling department.
Yeah, I considered laying it.
The only other thing, though, I'll add those. I don't think Santos' defensive grappling is that great. So that's why I'm like, in a back and forth type of fight like this, maybe he could outpace him a bit in the grappling department, but I don't think so personally.
That's the thing. I honestly consider laying because I think the skill gap is pretty big between the two of them in the aggregate. But, laying minus 250-ish against a volume wrestler is about the dumbest thing you can do in betting MMA, I learned my lesson doing that with Peter Yan against Marab. Not going to do it again. But, I mean, Yi can't compete with him on the feet here, like, at all. Like, Santos is going to butcher him there, in my opinion. I do think you can make some argument for Yi gets 8 or 9 takedowns, wins a close decision. My thing is, I think Santos is he's not as good a wrestler, and he won't volume wrestle the way Yi will, but I think he's a much better grappler overall. Like, I think Santos can, like, I know people see Yi taking these dudes' backs on, like, Road to UFC and in, like, the China regionals.
So low level.
Bro, yeah, how many of these guys have come over and looked like legit? And by the way, I say this, I think he's going to be a decent fighter in the UFC. He's got a good style for it. But Santos is a pretty legit jiu-jitsu player. I think he might be able to, Luke just said it in the chat. Santos, that's how I viewed it. You use upside's a close decision. Whereas, like, are you going to be shocked if he comes out here shooting and just loses like 3 scrambles in 3 rounds and gets body triangled for 15 minutes? Like, I won't be. Will you be shocked if he gets forced to stand and gets butchered? I won't be. Like, you look at the Jung Young Lee fight. I mean, Jung Young Lee, it is unclear what kind of prospect that guy even is. And that performance he put in last time was dreadful. And yeah, I mean, he deserved to win that fight, in my opinion, but it was a very close fight. And this is a totally different level than anything he's ever seen before. I won't lay the chalk here. I do think it's justified. I think Santos is going to be really good for a long time. And we'll see. You know, maybe he's going to be the Chinese wrestler that breaks the mold and comes to the UFC and, you know, dominates. But I am pretty, and to Sean's point, Lee had an injury for that fight as well. So it's like, I don't even put that much into it. I'm comfortable passing. I think Santos hammers him. Glenbot suggested the fight goes. My concern is just, and tell me if you disagree, but my concern here is just the jiu-jitsu. Because like Santos has much better jiu-jitsu. Like it's legitimately not close. So if it's one of those things where, and he's definitely got the best jiu-jitsu that he's ever seen. Like, would it be shocking if he subbed him? And frankly, I wouldn't think it would be shocking if he KO'd him. Like Santos is a dangerous fighter. What do you think about fight goes?
I mean, well, I was first going to look at the price before I even give an opinion.
I think it's minus money, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, because I don't. It's not.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's minus 135. Yeah.
Honestly, it's not bad because I think most of the finishing upside is on the Santos side.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's awful.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. With that said, we are moving on to one of the best fights on the card. Andrade Lima, Felipe Dos Santos. Current price, Lima minus 180. Comeback on Dos Santos, plus 155. What do you think here, Lex?
I kind of understand the early line movers on this, on the Lima side. Like, to me, like on the feet, I think the leg kicks are going to be huge for Lima. I think that Felipe Dos Santos is super hittable on the feet. I think Lima could land takedowns here and control him pretty easily. I feel like people just are overstating the pace and just Dos Santos can easily just get in his face, overwhelm him with volume, whereas I think the leg kicks and the power from Lima can really deter that. So I lean more so on the Lima side. Much more well-rounded.
So I was pretty sure I'd bet him pre-tape Dos Santos and came out of it wishing I taped it earlier and bet Lima. With that said, though, I do have like I have concerns about Lima, to be honest. I like he did. I thought he looked like he was gassing out and breaking in his first UFC fight against the dude that bit him. I really thought it looked that way. I didn't like how not assertive he was against Raposo. You know, like that fight, you know, whatever. You want to say this shouldn't have been a split decision? I don't really care. That fight was way closer than it should have been just because he refused to kind of do stuff. And that's kind of been the story of his career. You know, he does throw with intent and he's got nasty calf kicks, but he's not really ever assertive. And on the other side, Dos Santos is the epitome of assertive. Like, this dude just comes for you. But ultimately, what led to me kind of leaning to the Lima side in this fight is just, for one, I don't want to say like the cop fight was unimpressive by Dos Santos. It was very impressive on short notice. But I also think, you know, people were impressed with the offense he put out, which was really impressive. But I mean, the dude had zero defense. Cop touched him whenever he wanted. He dropped him multiple times. He hurt him multiple times. I think that's something that until we see Santos level up, it's kind of hard to trust because he is there to hit. I don't think he carries that much power himself personally. And so if he's going to swing himself into a firefight, he's going to have his head on a platter to crack. And I think Lima hits a lot harder than he is. And I think Lima's striking is a lot more refined. I think his grappling concerns me. And I also think, I mean, even going back and looking at Dos Santos regionally, you know, he's an aggro fighter, and I like that, but he doesn't have like the best regional tape either, to be honest. So, I mean, Lima, he's just a much more seasoned and refined striker, in my opinion. Better hardware, hits harder, has leg kicks. But if Dos Santos, if he can make it out of the fire and keep the pace on him without getting hurt too bad, I could see him taking over on the back end of the fight. You know, he does push a pace, and he is tough. He's obviously not afraid to go forward and swing. So, I have those concerns about Lima, and I think Dos Santos could potentially exploit them. But I'd rather just look live and see what the pace is like.
Yeah, I think my main issue really with Lima is his work rate.
It's horrible. It's really horrible. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Moving on. I'm going to say about 5 words on this fight. We got Isaac Doarian, minus 3,000. Comeback on Brandon Marat, plus 1,300. This is the UFC saying, we're sorry you got fucked in your last fight. Nothing on this fight interests me betting-wise. Doarian should win it however he wants. Brandon Marat, not a UFC fighter. As Lags would say, he's a role player. I have no interest. I think Doarian smashes him. What do you think?
The only other thing I will add to that is the role player is from our good friend Martian. So
That's right.
Can't take credit for that. But no. Similar thoughts here as well. Doarian round 1, not too much to add.
Yeah. By the way, I don't think Lags is advocating for a bet for Doarian round 1.
I am not. No, I'm not. That is a prediction.
Yeah. I don't think I looked at the bet on this card. Dude, you're basically playing. You're just playing like dealer's choice. Like he's gonna finish him however he wants to finish him. Like there's no reason to, in my opinion, anyway. We'll see. Moving on. Another cool fight here. Ryan Spann, Oven St. Preux, and it's another underdog. I've seen a fair amount of love for this week. Ryan Spann minus 330, come back on St. Preux plus 270. Do you think OSP can turn the clock back one more time here, Lags?
Well, I'll say this. A lot to unpack for a fight that I'm probably not even going to touch at all. But for starters, for the people who are betting OSP now, why not wait? Why not wait around? It makes absolutely no sense to bet in Prix. Much slower guy, much less finishing upside, at least in the first round. And Spann, pretty much all of his wins are under a round and a half.
Yeah.
And Spann collapsing is pretty much OSP, in my opinion, OSP's win condition. Winning in 2 or 3, or even just outlasting him, winning a decision.
Assuming OSP doesn't collapse himself.
Which is, very live because his cardio is also trash. I think this should be an easy fight for Spann, quite frankly. To say all that, it should be an easy fight. I think OSP is just super slow, super washed at this point. It should be a very easy finish for Spann.
Yeah, to play some market psychology here, I bet OSP at plus 200 against Felipe Lynch 2 fights ago.
Same.
No one else wanted him. We were like 2 of the only people that bet him in the space. He got knocked out in 15 seconds. But I bring that up because everybody's like, OSP shot. He's done after the Bozer KO, whatever. And he got knocked out really quick. So then he's plus 550 against Kennedy. And to his credit, I would argue that the presence of PEDs would potentially or likely in that fight. But he goes off as plus 550 there. Now, no one wants to bet him at plus 550 against Kennedy and Sejiku. But now, no one wanted to bet him against Felipe Lynch, a slow heavyweight who sucks, at plus 200 2 fights ago. He loses that. No one wanted him at plus 550 against Kennedy. But now people are looking for OSP at plus 270 against Ryan Spann. And, I get the Spann argument, but, we just talked about it. OSP's cardio has been shit for years. Yes, he turned back the clock for that one fight. And maybe he is on the juice, and he still is, and it works again. He's 41 years old, though, man. The guy's got a bad chin. He's 41. His output isn't that good. Ryan Spann is long and explosive. They don't call him Superman for no reason. The guy is a dangerous, dangerous fighter. Now, is he subject to potentially gassing himself out and losing if he gets finished? Or if he doesn't get the finish? Yeah. But is OSP going to have the gas to do it? I don't know. And, I don't want to say Spann's cardio is, underrated. But I also think you look at his everybody's thinking about the cardio after the Guskov fight. But, he went nuts in round 1, Spann did, trying to finish that fight on the back and whatnot, and then gassed out. It's not like he's never been to a decision before. He lost the decision, a split to Anthony Smith, which was a very close fight. He went pretty deep against Devin Clark. He took a decision off Sam Alvey. And again, I know these are not, the kind of people that you want to be, using to illustrate a point here.
Going deep. Yeah.
Yeah. But, is OSP more than that, than either of those guys at this point? I would wager he's worse than Anthony Smith at this point. So maybe it happens. Maybe OSP takes over. I saw Ozzy mention this, and I actually could see this happening, OSP jumping for, or Spann jumping for a guillotine and getting Von Perut. I could imagine that happening, and OSP sub would be interesting to me. But I just think there's just too much athlete on the Spann side, too much horsepower. And again, it's one of those things. I am unless OSP at 41 lands a kill shot or a head kick in round 1 or gets the Von Perut, he's very likely going to have a really hard round 1 where he's going to take some fucking damage,
And that's kind of why I like the under 1.5. It is a little chalky at minus 160, but
it's not horrible.
I expect OSP, like you just mentioned, I expect OSP to take a ton of damage in this first round.
And it's if he doesn't get finished, then fine, live bet him. If you were so inclined to think that OSP definitely has better cardio than Kennedy or than Spann and will have success on the back end, why are you going to bet him at plus 270 pre when he could get dropped 3 times and be plus 800 after a round? I'd rather duck Ryan Spann's violent athleticism early, in this kind of a fight with the 41-year-old chinny guy who looked like he was 1 foot out the door until the fight ago. So just my perspective. I think Spann's going to knock him out, though, honestly. I don't think that's really much of a hot take. Moving on, we have the return of Rongzhu taking on Chris Padilla. Current price, Rongzhu is some Chris Padilla money coming in here. Oh, nope. I went back on Zhu. Never mind, I lied. Rongzhu minus the 250. They come back up Padilla plus 210. I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that wants to bet Padilla just because I do not like Rongzhu's game at all. Obviously, we faded him back in the day with Kazula. That went well. I don't like Chris Padilla's game much, though. Like, I could see him out grappling. If you tell me the Mexican-American grappler with decent jiu-jitsu out grapples the Chinese guy, like, I'm not going to be, like, completely shocked like that, But I don't really like his grappling that much. I don't really like his gas tank that much. And even though I don't mind his output on the feet, the guy's a punching bag. What I will say is I think even on the feet, his last fight with Lontop aged fairly well, especially seeing the performance Lontop put in against Lava 2 weeks ago. And I think Rongzhu is fairly fraudulent, but he's 24 years old. He's at the China PI, reasonably technical striker, hits pretty hard. I don't know. It's weird because the price feels like fundamentally wrong to me. No pun intended. I feel like Padilla pushing him enough to gas him, or just given the amount of success Kazula Vargas had on top of Rongzhu, like Padilla getting on top of him and submitting him wouldn't be shocking. But at the same time, it's one of these fights that the line feels like it is where it is for a reason. Like, Rongzhu is allegedly 24 years old. Until I have confirmation that he's actually 44 years old, I want to assume he's 24. Like, again, you never really know with these Chinese prospects, but he is clearly improving. He's clearly better than he was in his last UFC stint. I don't know. I think the true price could be anywhere from like wrong minus 185 to minus 300. So I don't know how much upside. Padilla's got a lot of upside. Yeah. There's not much in his tape showing off like 10 minutes of control grappling though, So I lean wrong. I'm probably not, maybe I'll bet it if it keeps getting wider. Padilla, it feels wide. I don't have passion for it, and I'm trying to avoid betting just to bet, So what do you think? Do you think Padilla's live?
Well, no, it's funny. It's literally funny. Again, you mentioned it with the Rongzhu with the ceiling, because I was literally going to come on here and say, like, to me, like he's 250-ish, but like his ceiling's probably what, 3-1. Like you're not getting much meat. You're not getting much meat on the bone at all. But on the Padilla side, like I don't rate his control. His wrestling's okay, but his control is just not great. So I could easily see Rong just popping up, landing the better shots on the feet. Padilla's pretty hittable. Like he has a huge striking edge, in my opinion.
I'm also skeptical Padilla can really push the wrestling for that long.
Yeah.
Like without gassing out.
Yep.
And like Padilla, he's fought some decent competition, but for the most part, like they've all beaten him. Jason Gonzalez knocked him out. Christian Aguilera, who can't grapple at all, beat him. Gabe Green submitted him. Nate Andrews submitted him. His best win is Justin James, who is like an ancient and was not very good to begin with. I don't really I don't really have any interest in getting involved on it. I do have interest in this fight, though. It's my only bet on the card right now. We've got Trevor Peek taking on Ashmus. I have a unit on Ashmus plus 115. Again, no real passion here, but I guess the way I think about it is, Peek's got the durability edge, in my opinion, in all likelihood. May have a cardio edge, though I think harder to say. And I think he's a fighter who's developing. He's at a better gym now. I thought he looked improved against Charlie Campbell in his last fight. But even in that fight, though, I still see a lot of the whole, like, he's doing a better job of not just waiting into the pocket wide open to crush every time he gets in there. But he's still, in exchanges, is very, very easy to hit. He's very leg kickable. He's very grappleable. Obviously, he's got some power and some degree of danger, but it's pretty clear that, like, I said it when he debuted, the guy needed like 4 or 5 more fights, regionally before even thinking about the UFC. And actually, he's done better. honestly, he's done better than I would have thought, for the lack of experience that he had and how raw his game was. And I'm not saying like Ashmus is a smash smart, because I do think, you have Peak, who is upgrading his game. You've got his pace, you've got his power and durability. But I look at the Ashmus side, and he seems like a much more refined fighter to me. He's dynamic in his own right, very, very fast, hits very, very hard. He's obviously the much more technical striker here. Even though I bet Chris Duncan against him in his last fight, I don't put a ton of stock into that because he broke his arm in the first round of the fight. Kind of changed the entire fight since he couldn't throw strikes, the entire last 2 rounds. But he is a better striker. Now, can Peak make it messy, tank his shots, come in there and finish him? Yeah, I mean, I think he can. I do think Ashmus probably hits harder, though, than most of the guys Peak has fought. He's faster than most of the guys Peak has fought. And I think he's got a pretty sizable grappling edge here. Like, I don't think is a great grappler, but he's quality. He's fine, and he's a better wrestler than Peak. And Peak is the kind of guy who will go in there and try to push the wrestling like he did it with Campbell, even though he is, and he did it with the fuck is his name? The dude that smashed Damon Jackson a couple weeks ago. I cannot believe I can't remember his name.
I was literally just looking at Peak's record too.
Hispanic dude. Mariscal, Chepe Mariscal. He'll grapple when he shouldn't, and I could see him trying to do it here if he gets himself into any trouble. And I think if it comes to like counter grappling and scrambling, it's probably going to out scramble him pretty easily. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a competitive fight. I do, but I think like Ashmus should be like -110 to -120 range. I don't think him being an underdog makes sense given the skill gap. But with that said, I mean, Peak's leveling up. He is dangerous and he is durable as shit. Like you have to hit this guy with a pipe to put him out. So I don't really want to have a big position on just a unit for me. Ashmus +115. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be a pick 'em as well, but I lean on that Peak side just because, again, you talked about Yanel's wrestling in general, and you don't think it's great. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm at as well. And I do think he could probably win that 3rd round at a high clip, just like Duncan did in his last fight. I mean, that was very easy for him to just control Trevor in that 3rd round.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Campbell, sorry, not Duncan. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the power and the durability is too much for me to ignore on the feet. Like I don't think Yanel's a great striker. His leg kicks could be beneficial here, but I don't think
he's a good striker, but I don't think he throws nearly enough strikes, and I don't think he sets up any of the shit he does. Like he'll just like randomly chuck out a spinning kick from like 8 feet away, for like no really good reason.
And when he's not doing that, he seems just kind of passive and just almost waiting for those shots. And so in a fight like this where Peak is coming forward, could be some trouble.
Dogfather asked for thoughts on the over.
See, I would lean the over. I think both these guys are pretty durable.
I just feel like Peak's going to force a fight. And like, I know Peak hasn't been put down yet, but like, it's going to happen. It's coming. The time where he gets knocked out is coming, and Peak himself is pretty dangerous. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm not that interested in it. Moving on. Whew, short notice fight thrown together here. It's listed on Tapology as 125, but if I'm not mistaken, I heard this was a catch weight at 135. I could be wrong about that. We got Matt Schnell, originally booked against Alessandro Costa. And I actually had some interest in Schnell against Costa at like +400 or whatever he was. But I actually had some interest in Schnell at that price. And now he's got Cody Durden coming in on super short notice. The thing is, I think Durden is a lot better than Costa is, and Durden's at -300, but it's very short notice for Durden. It's like 4 days. He said he's going out there without his corner. He's going out there with just his girlfriend or his wife to, corner him for this fight. The guy got violently finished, a couple months ago. Obviously, Durden's the better wrestler in this fight. The jiu-jitsu is probably similar, but Cody Durden does have a tendency to put his head and neck and arm in places he shouldn't do that. And Schnell does have a dangerous guard. So Durden's a good grappler, though. So I don't think he'll see too much danger from Schnell's guard. On the feet, it's interesting. Durden's an underrated striker. Schnell's a pretty good striker, though. And Schnell will have a height and reach advantage here. I don't know. It's kind of a weird fight because I have been a Durden fan. And I think he's very skilled for the division. I don't like that he's taking this on short notice, though. And he's taking it so close so recently after being iced horribly. And he's fighting a guy who's got decent pop for flyweight and who throws, good volume, a lot taller and a lot longer. I could see Schnell like kind of competing on minutes here, but again, I mean, it all comes back to the same thing with Matt Schnell, and the guy can't take a shot, and he's the worst grappler here. So I was more interested in him against Costa than I was here. Just I felt like the market was hugely overpricing Costa's chance for a KO. I think Durden's legitimately a top 10 to 15 guy at flyweight. Short notice, probably bad for him, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Schnell pulled an upset here, but I just think Durden's a much better fighter than him, and I think he's far more likely to KO him unless his chin's compromised in that last knockout. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, minus 300 for me, Durden seems more than justified in my opinion. Again, with the short notice nature is obviously that big concern, but I think he should be fine with the wrestling.
Yeah, I completely agree. Moving on, we got Kyle Nelson taking on Steve Garcia. Current price, Garcia minus 181. Come back on Nelson plus 156. What are your thoughts here, Lags?
Well, I believe if I'm not mistaken, last time out against Choi, that was a shot bet, and our first shot bet that we started doing these. Because I was pretty coward and didn't want to lay the price on Steve, but I kind of think same thing here, really, to be honest with you. So if you want to do a shot bet and you like the Kyle Nelson side, I would happily do that. But I think Steve runs through him. It's hard to fade the mean machine. Dude's got power. I mean, obviously he's super volatile, and like laying this price against Kyle Nelson when I laid this price against Kyle Nelson in his last fight with Bill Algeo, who I think is obviously a much better fighter than Steve, it's an easy pass for me. But I think Steve should knock him out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I can't lay the price with Steve here because, I mean, at the end of the day, he is very clippable and very hurtable, and Nelson does hit really, really hard. I did bet Choi in his last fight. The reason I'm not like overly interested in the Choi side in this, or not the Choi side, the Nelson side, is I just think Nelson's a lot slower than Choi was. He could do some work with his kicks, but I think, Choi could keep up with Garcia on athleticism and even to a degree on power. So it just felt like a highly volatile fight when with those guys where both guys were pretty open to get hurt. And I think it could happen here. Like if Nelson ices him, I'm not going to be shocked. But I do think there's a big athleticism gap here. I think Steve's a lot faster. He's also a lot longer. I also think there's an element of Nelson's really, really what's going on, Weezy? Nelson has really, really overperformed, his expectations. And I think it's possible that the market is starting to overrate Nelson a bit. I mean, this guy closed plus 300 without Gio in his last fight. Was a huge dog to Fernando Padilla. Was a dog to Blake Builder. And now a dog again here, but like I can't help but wonder if, had he not been on a 3-fight winning streak, that he wouldn't be a bigger dog than he is. And like I guess what I'm looking at it is I could easily see this turning into the kind of fight that who's the guy that fucking axe kicked him and crescent kicked him? Ontiveros. Like Steve will wrestle when he's hurt. Unlike Choi, he doesn't bite down and swing. If you crack him, he will try to shoot. And I really think if he gets on top of Kyle Nelson, he's going to fuck him up bad. Like Kyle Nelson, some people forget. I don't. Kyle Nelson got subbed by Matt Sales once upon a time and pretty dominated in the grappling there. I don't think he's a great grappler from bottom position. So I think that is a safety net for Steve if he wants it. Obviously on the feet, very, very volatile. It's hard to make him too much of a favorite, but I do think his speed and power gives him a bit of an edge here. So I think that minus 160 to minus 180 for Steve is probably fine. I lean Steve, though. Moving on. Bate Estaca, Jessica Andrade, taking out Natalia Silva. Current price on Silva, minus 300. Come back on Andrade, plus 250. I don't know. I was almost positive I would bet Andrade pre-tape. And even after tape, I think I have some good reasons to bet Andrade, but I don't really want to be honest. Like that's kind of the thing, like what it comes down to for me. She's had some good performances and some bad performances in recent years, I don't think Silva is like much better than Marina Rodriguez, but I think she's harder to put on her ass. I think she's a lot younger and obviously improving. She's faster, she's got better lateral footwork than Marina does, where Marina tends to be more of a linear fighter. I don't know. It's weird because his price feels wrong. Like Jessica Andrade, obviously been through the ringer. She's fought everybody. She's got real power for a woman, which is really rare. Throws nasty leg kicks, is a decent grappler, has great cardio. Silva looks like the real deal. This is a step up in competition for her, obviously, but she is tough to find with her strikes, and Jessica is not. If you're a precise striker like she is, I don't really see any grappling upside for Silva, which brings into question how much can she really be lined if she can't grapple at all here. But I think she can hurt Jess. We've seen Jess hurt a lot more in recent years. I don't know, man. Like stylistically, I don't actually think it's a terrible fight for Andrade. She does throw heavy leg kicks, and like if she starts to slow Silva's movement down, that could be really bad for her if she has to get into a phone booth with Andrade, because Andrade almost certainly has heavier hands. Obviously, Silva's dangerous, but I think most of her danger comes with her kicks. But one of the things that's been concerning me, though, it's like Andrade keeps going back and forth with weight classes. Obviously, that story came out this week about how her old coach embezzled like $2 million from her, whatever. It seems like she's just trying to fight for money right now and fight as often as possible, which, I mean, I'm happy to bet her in the right spots. Marino was a good spot to bet her. Mackenzie Dern was a good spot to bet her. And this might be a good spot to bet her in. She's the only side you could bet. Like, if you're trying to make a minus 300 Natalia Silva case for me, you're fucking crazy. Like, I don't think you can reasonably make that case, because we just talked about upside with the wrong fight. It's like, what's Natalia Silva's like true price upside? Certainly it's not better than 80%, which would be a 5% edge on the line. Whereas there's worlds where if Andrade can get inside easily and hammer her, like the fight should be very, very closely lined. So you can make an argument for Andrade at the price. I feel weird about it. It does feel like it's all lining up for Andrade to get iced, like the Jan fight again, just trying to recklessly close distance. But it's Andrade or pass. I haven't decided what I'll do with it. I've been considering her. I think it's so hard to be under 30% when you have the kind of power Andrade does, when you're the better grappler in the fight and you're the more experienced fighter who's also fought better competition. What do you think?
Not going to grapple. And Silva's not going to grapple. But now I'm going to go on the chalk side here, because I like Silva. I think she's a fine prospect. To me, I think the speed and the footwork are the huge difference makers in the fight. No doubt about it. But again, to get to a minus 300 clip, I'm not so certain on that, because she's not going to be grappling. And I don't think her finishing upside is that high either.
It's not like Andrade hasn't fought women with good footwork before, she went to a split with Rose in a 3-round fight. And I would say Rose has commensurate footwork, but better boxing in the pocket, where Ivan Silva does. Yeah. I don't know. I have like very bad vibes about Andrade, and like, I don't know, man. Like recently, she just seems like she's on the back end of her career, but she's only 32 years old. I don't know. I'm like talking it out of my head right now.
I know. But she's super hittable for me. Like she's just very plotty walking forward. Like to me, this is a very not an easy fight by any means for Silva, but a very, I would say, tailor-made in that sense, that I feel like
that's kind of interesting. Andrade decision. Yeah. 6-1. I mean, look, but like, here's the thing: Silva lost fucking rounds to Teresa Bleda and Viviane Araújo. Like the Araújo fight was a close fight, even though she was dead gassed in round 3. And that's like what I can't really like unsee. Like Silva's most impressive performance by far is Jasmine. Even the Lee fight, round 1 was competitive till she stung her, and then it seemed like Lee does what Lee does every fight where she gets adversity these days, and just completely went into neutral and just seemed happy to lose, a pretty tepid decision. But I don't know. It's really weird. I have really weird feelings about it, because I feel like every signal is flashing that Andrade's here, but I also kind of think Andrade has seen her best days, and I actually think Silva's pretty legit. So I don't know. Who knows? EN said moments versus volume. I tend to agree with that too.
Yeah. I don't know. How about this, John? What do you think of her chances of finishing Silva? That is, like Silva finishing Andrade.
I mean, decent. I would say like 20, 25% on that range.
Because I was going to say, if you think it's pretty competitive, I mean, the plus 3.5 might not be a horrible angle. Well, I know it's not going to be even close to the money line, but I mean, if you
what is the plus 3.5?
It's not out yet. I imagine It's not out yet, but I can look for you while we go to the main event.
Yeah, going to the main event. We've got But yeah, hold on. In short, I'm not as of right now planning to bet Andrade. I'm trying to like focus on like, I feel like I've lost money on a bunch of spots like this the last 2 years where it's like, oh, it checks a lot of boxes I look for, therefore I'm going to bet it, even though like my eyes and my head are kind of telling me the other side.
That's honestly like,
clip.
And not even just saying it's appetite, but I feel like that with Cannonier too. Like Kyle was catching him, I feel like at the right time, short notice for Jared. Kyle's on the rise again. Great spot, great main event. And I kind of feel like we're talking about that this fight with Gilbert.
I agree.
Sean.
Gilbert Burns.
I think it's
Sean Brady.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Sean is catching Gilbert at a great spot. Gilbert is very old. You have those injury concerns as well. I mean, obviously, people could say, at minus 180, Sean Brady, well, he probably needs to largely control in the grappling, which I think he could have large portions of grappling in this fight. To be honest, I don't think he's finishing Burns on the mat.
No,
in terms of
dude, he's not holding Burns down, man. I'm telling you, it's
no. And I don't think he's a better striker. I think Burns is a better striker here, but it does come down to that physical strength, the grappling. I think Brady can get him down.
Yeah, so like that's the thing is like I have done terrible in main events this year, and especially with this exact kind of main event, which like betting the old guy who checks every box and is fighting the much younger fighter here, and that, like I bet Tybura, obviously that one horrible, Cannonier, Chris Curtis, although that was a great bet, just got fucked by a non-contact knee injury, but old guy, non-contact knee injury. I bet Barboza against Murphy. The list goes on, and like these kind of main events, man.
I was just looking back there. There's one you didn't though. Whitaker and Aliskerov.
But he's not that old though, man. He's like 33 or 34.
Yeah,
you know. And Aliskerov had like 2 wins against non-top 15 opponents.
Yeah, but he was on the rise, on the hype. They were trying to push him.
Yeah, but like Kaio, like with Kaio, he at least had shown off like some ability to beat decent competition, whereas
that's fair.
Aliskerov had not at all. But yeah, I mean that's like on paper, man. Dude, this is like a pretty good matchup for Gilbert Burns. Like I don't think Sean Brady is a great striker. I mean, this is a guy who got outstruck by Michael Chiesa. He got finished on the feet by Bilal Muhammad. Like Bilal's the champion, but he can't bust the grape. He didn't get to the title out striking guys, he beat the shit out of Brady on the feet. You said he could get takedowns. I do think he'll get takedowns if he wants them, but Hamzat Chimaev couldn't control Gilbert Burns. Damian Maia couldn't control Gilbert Burns. Michel Prazeres at his peak couldn't control Gilbert Burns. Like, I'd be shocked if Sean Brady is getting like big control against Gilbert Burns here. Like, I think they're mostly going to strike. And historically speaking, Gilbert's the better striker. And so it's like, how are you not betting Gilbert? He's the better Elo. He's more experienced. But what I just can't like get past with Gilbert is, first of all, I think his athleticism is pretty visibly declined. I can forgive the Bilal fight because he hurt his shoulder in round 1 there, like whatever. But what I can't forgive is the way he looked against Masvidal, which I thought was horrible. I know he won the fight clean, but I thought he looked terrible in that fight. I thought the Jack fight, even though he was up in that fight, I bet him against Jack. I thought he looked slower. I thought there was less burst in his striking. I thought there was less burst in his takedowns. I feel Gilbert in his prime would have absolutely murked Jack on the mat. And like the fact that Jack was like scrambling with him, like was pretty bearish to me, to be honest. And so he's clearly declining. He's 38. He's had major injuries. He got knocked out pretty brutally a couple months ago. I don't know. Our buddy Mr. Blonde said this in a group chat we're in earlier, but like it seems like bad shit just seems to happen to these older fighters, especially in these main events. And like, I think Brady actually can hit a bit. He did hurt Jake Matthews. He hurt Court McGee. I actually think he's got decent power. I don't think Gilbert is the most durable guy in the world. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like stylistically I should be all over Gilbert here. From an Elo perspective, he's obviously the side. From a tape perspective, he obviously seems like the side. Burns KO on a TD entry from Sean in round 3. I don't know, man. That could happen, but he's not really a counter fighter at all. I don't know. Let me put it this way. If you think Sean's going to win this fight, what do you think that looks like? That's the issue for me is like, they're on different trajectories for sure. Like Burns is at the end of his career. That's very, very clear. And Sean Brady is improving and on the way up. And that's just been a horrible macro to fade the last year or so. Like, what do you think it looks like Brady winning this fight?
A lot of cage control, a lot of just avoiding exchanges on the feet, just timing entries nice. I like, to me, Burns striking is fine, but it's a lot of overhands. I feel like his striking is not. I mean,
no kicks and overhands. Yeah,
right. It's better than Brady's, which again, it's simplified to that, but it's predictable. I'd say. Like, I think Brady shouldn't have much issue on the feet.
I wouldn't say shouldn't have much issue.
I should say timing entries into his wrestling. Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, Michael, he had issues with Michael Chiesa on the feet.
Sorry.
Like, he might have issues on the feet with Gilbert Burns.
He will have issues on the feet. I mean timing his entries from those.
Yep. Yeah, I struggle to picture like him winning, and I also think Brady's cardio is a bit suspect, man. Like, did he gassed out against McGee, but it was his debut? Gassed out bad against Chiesa. Gassed out in round 2 against Bilal. I think his cardio is a bit sketchy, but also.
So let me throw it back at you then. If you like the Burns side, and obviously you're holding off on betting him, how does a Burns win look?
I think he probably would not. Maybe not necessarily knock him out, but knock him out or a decision. I think his leg kicks could have a huge impact. Like, I'd be surprised if Brady really knows how to deal with calf kicks like that well, and I think if he's like proactive with them, it could have a big impact. I think he could just outclass him, honestly, but. It's been a while since Burns outclassed anyone. Although, with that being said, with the exception of the Masvidal fight, he has been fighting the best guys in the world in every fight. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I feel. I mean, what do you think about under?
I was just. It's funny you say that. I feel like I was literally going to say, how do you feel about the over?
I don't like the over. I don't like the over.
And the only reason I don't like the over is just the Burns side.
Dude, minus 220 on the over. 3.5?
No, 4.5. No, 4.5.
Well, I'm saying the 3.5. The main total is minus 220 to the over.
Sorry, I was looking at the 4.5 pick 'em. Yeah, no, 3.5. I would pass. No,
I'm actually kind of tempted by the under just because I think, dude. I mean, Burns has horsepower, man. Both these guys have theoretically finishing up. Like, all right, let me frame it for you a different way. Sean Brady's minus 175.
Yep.
If that price is right, or he should be wider, surely the under has to be right. Like, I really don't think Sean Brady is cleanly winning many 5-round decisions with Gilbert Burns, even at this stage of his career. Like, do you?
No, but I said the same thing almost with Kyle last time out, when I'm like, well, if he's this big of a favorite, he probably should be finishing Jared. He's probably not going to, outclass him on the feet in a 5-round decision.
And Brady's had a lot of time off, and he looks like in pretty good shape. And his cardio, to his credit, did look on point in his last fight, so yeah, I don't know. I don't want. I'm so scarred from this shit that the amount of money I've lost this year betting on these fucking main event dogs, like taking a step against the guy taking a step up. Like, it just seems like it never goes well, and I'm very sure if I don't bet Burns that he will win dominantly and look like huge, gigantic value, and if I do bet him, he'll die to a half strength jab like 2 minutes into the fight, but. I don't know, man. I don't like betting him off the KO. I don't like his age. I don't like that he's talking about this is the end. I don't like how his athleticism seems to be declining against a guy who may or may not be on steroids and who looks like he's in the best shape of his life right now. All the stylistics favor Burns, in my opinion. All of them.
Hey, John. Little narrative here. Sean Brady fighting a Brazilian, the Eagles in Brazil this week.
Are they?
They are in Brazil Friday.
I didn't know that. We're doing NFL games in Brazil?
Yes. They play the Packers on Friday.
Hopefully no one gets stabbed.
You haven't heard about this at all? No, honestly, you haven't heard about this?
No.
The players are freaking out. Like, coaches are telling them, don't leave the hotels. Like, it's super dangerous.
I love Brazilians, but, like,
yeah,
that is, like, Brazil has got some, it is a rough country, it's, but yeah, so I don't know. I feel like I wish.
Ask you that, so is Philly getting a win in Brazil against the Brazilian here?
Well, I think the Packers are going to handle them, to be honest. But
really,
yeah, I don't think Philly's that good, honestly. Like, they're good, but they're overrated in my opinion.
I'll take a shot bet on that, John. If you don't want to take a shot bet on any of the fights, Packers Eagles.
Well, do I get the spread at least if we're going to get a shot bet on that?
Yeah. What am I giving you? 3 or 2.5?
Is that the spread right now?
It's 2.5.
I'll take 3. I'll take a shot bet on 3. On the Packers plus 3.
All right. I'll give you the half. I'll give you the half point, John.
But yeah, I don't know. I wish I could say more about it. Like I've lost on so many spots this year. I just don't. I'm kind of sick of playing them, and it's like I think Bellator's got some great spots this week. I'm gonna do a show on that on Friday. I think there's some great spots on Cage Warriors this week. We have so much MMA this week. Like I don't feel like I need to take a stand and bet. Especially like you go look, it's like the most high volume betting fight of the week. Like I don't. Clearly, there's enough money that thinks Brady deserves his price, and I'll probably be a moron and go and bet Burns for Saturday morning because I can't help myself, but. I don't know. I'm good to pass it. I don't like this card. I don't like the props on this card. I don't really like the totals on this card. I have one small bet, and it's Ashmus. I haven't bet it yet, but I will have a big bet next week, and it's not in the main event. I really, really like next week's card. So, yeah. I mean, I'll be doing Bellator Friday morning, guys, if you want to check it out. Lags, you got anything you want to close with here?
The only thing I want to close with really is kind of what we were talking about with the main event with the old guard versus the new guard. I feel like the UFC in general, their matchmaking this year in specific has been very tailor-made to that.
Yeah. I mean, look at let's see. I mean, look at the cards coming up. Well, let me pull them up for a second. Or the ones we have odds for. Tapuria Holloway, although I guess that's just more to highlights. But Blanchfield, Namajunas, Moicano, Saint Denis.
Right.
There's a lot of that going on this year.
Yep.
I agree. Is Lima live in Bellator? I mean, he's like plus 110. He's obviously live. It's not like is he value is a different question, but like his implied odds are like 48%. So I mean, he could definitely win the fight. I will, however, have a show on it. I did bet Sumiko Inaba very large this week. I took 3.1 units at minus 155. Then the line cratered to minus 110, and I bet it some more. I think she's going to kill Mackenzie Stiller. So if you guys want a big bet, there's that.
Not financial advice.
Not financial advice. I'm about to bet Alexander Shabili in the main event right now. But I'll talk about those in detail on Friday. Legs, anything else you want to talk about?
Last thing I'll close out with is come support John for that Bellator show, obviously.
And Contender Show will be back on Tuesday. Dude, it's so fucked, man. I was away all week last week. I got home late Tuesday night. Absolute shitfest of a commute home. My wife flew with the kids to Cape Cod. So they're fast, like a half-hour flight. I drove for 4.5 hours. Which I didn't mind. That's no podcast. It was pleasant,
Yeah.
But the drive home on Monday, we leave. They fly back. I'm driving home, cruising along. Well, I'm in some traffic because it's Labor Day, coming home from the Cape. And I finally get out of the traffic. I'm on the Merritt Parkway in Connecticut. And I get a call from my wife from a number I don't recognize. 3 separate times it calls me. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it's got to be important. So I answer it. It's my wife. And she's like, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, what am I not going to believe? She's like, after we got off the plane, we were like putting the luggage away and I was putting it in the car and I locked the keys and my phone in the car. And I'm like, you did what? Are you fucking serious right now? She's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. I mean, I guess I'm going to reroute to JFK, which is going to take me like to 95 and through the city. So I reroute. I try to call AAA to get them there. They can't find her. So I'm like, fuck, I'm going to have to go all the way through over here. No, half hour later, she calls me. She's like, yeah, JFK got here, or the AAA got here. I'm heading home. I'm like, awesome. Well, that took me off of my no traffic path. That was an hour and a half from home into an extra 2.5 hours of traffic home. And I'm like, my brother and I went out the night before, and then we came back at like midnight and decided to have cigars. And so like I'm sitting there like I'm in hell right now. Like literally all I want to do is go to sleep, and I'm 2 hours from home. I've run out of all the podcasts I want to listen to. I'm just listening to like my gym mix in the car, like wanting to put my brains out. So yeah, that's why there was no show for Contenders this week. There will be one next week. And of course, it's like I lost the first 3 weeks, like had that fucking Aswell robbery last week. And then I win this week.
That was crazy.
I didn't even get to do it, dude.
That was bad.
Fucking absurd, man. It was fucking absurd. Even like, well, I mean, at least I cashed the plus 315 last night. I'm so pissed I didn't bet the that big fucking chick that was plus 1,000. Like,
yeah, hilarious.
Just on principle.
Hilarious.
Anyway.
All right, and last thing I will close out. It's week 1.
Oh yeah,
week one of
Go
football.
Steelers. What's your projection this year? What are you thinking? 6 wins?
Well, I was going to say.
I'm kidding.
No, I was going to say honestly, projection though over under 8.5 wins though. I think we're going under.
I actually think the Steelers are decent. I mean, they're always pretty decent. They're well run. Their defense should be good. So, but yeah,
quarterback
boys.
struggles for sure.
Well, I'm familiar with that as a Jets fan.
Oh,
so
for sure, you'll be fine.
Tyrod Taylor will be starting by week 4. I'm very sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. I wish I could give you more. I'll be back Friday, probably around 10 a.m. I want to do it before Cage Warriors starts. Yeah, Bellator card this weekend, Cage Warriors card on Friday. A lot of MMA. Contender Show will be back Tuesday, and we'll be back next Wednesday. I asked him last month. I believe Liam is going to do the show with us next week. So, we're going to cover UFC 306, UFC Noche, our boy Marab. I got a big bet on the card, or I will have a big bet on the card. It is not in the main event. It is not in the co-main event. But, yeah, guys, please drop a like, subscribe. As usual, you can find me on Twitter at MMA Fox, Lags at Danny_Lags. We'll see you guys next week. Good luck this weekend. God bless. Peace.